Right, well, Employment and Labour Department Deputy Director General Thembinkosi Mkalipi joins us for more on the jobs numbers. DDG, a good evening to you. I know it's been a very busy day, I can imagine, at the department as well as you've looked at the data. But I'm keen to hear just your first thoughts, right, as we look at the numbers. 32.1%, that's where our unemployment rate has eased to. There is, of course, the question around whether or not this is something to celebrate, considering that in Q2 we had the highest numbers we'd had in 2 years. So quite a drop that we needed to really make in terms of the difference between the two quarters.
There's no doubt that the numbers are not what we would like. The rate of unemployment is very high in the country. But any reduction, as small as it is welcome. It shows that we're taking the right direction. We're taking the right decision. It's going to take some time, but when the direction is downwards, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and of course, there's going to be the question around what you think is behind the relief, if you will, if that's the word we want to use to talk about the difference between Q2 and Q3.
Well, I mean, there are two issues. I mean, we need to look at what has changed since then. I mean, we've had the GNU, remember, which also affected sentiment in the economy and confidence. We've had load-free, no load shedding for quite some time, which also affected the operation of the economy. And in the second quarter, the GDP growth, although it was very small, but there was a GDP growth that was also affected and influence what is happening in the labor market. I think those three issues, for me, play a part in the direction that the economy is taking now. And we think that going forward, if we keep that, we might have better results than what we have today.
It's an interesting point that you raised at the top there, though, when you talk about how this government of national unity and sentiments around it having been really good for economic growth and hence job creation in the country. What does it do, though, when you do have, I suppose, tugs of war from the political sphere, right, on the stability of that government of national unity? A big debate around policy, for instance, Bella Bill being one of those at the center of it. What the trickle-down effect of that is for jobs, and if, you know, the economy is watching that very closely with concern.
I'm sure the market is not looking for a government where everybody will agree on everything. They're looking for a government where if there are differences, there are ways of dealing with those differences. That's what the market is looking for. Therefore, the fact that there are differences should not affect the market negatively. But if the market is well aware on what the parties will do to deal with their differences, and are they using those parameters that are available to them to deal with those differences, then the market is not going to have any issue with that. No. The issue becomes when parties are not using the avenues available to them to deal with differences. And as I'm saying, the market does not expect that in government, everybody should agree. If that happens, then we're going to have the same situation that we had 10 years ago, where the economy was not growing because government ministers and the government was agreeing on everything that is put on the table.
Just looking at some of the data that we got today, so the formal sector saw a rise by 122,000 jobs that were created. In the informal sector, there were 165,000 jobs that were created. And I think it's important to look at that data of the informal sector, because that's become such a big issue lately, right? You've got, for instance, the Gauteng department or Gauteng government going the route of saying, well, we need to re-register spaza shops. And then for vendors that are operating outside of schools, no food can be sold in and outside of schools. It's the issue, of course, around food poisoning, but many that have raised concern about what this does to the township economy. Is that a threat that we might very well be facing in terms of creating opportunities moving forward?
There's no doubt. If you look at South Africa and compare it with other countries, even in the continent, the size of the informal economy in our country is not as big as it should be. Now, when you're talking about informal economy, you're not only talking about the spaza shops, you're talking about all sorts of industries manufacturing and others that are in that space, that should be in that space. And that's what we need to try and unpack. What is it that we need to do as a country to increase the size of the informal economy in our economy, and that will assist in reducing unemployment. As I've said, if you look at countries like us in the continent and elsewhere, the size of the informal economy is far bigger than the size of the informal economy here than in South Africa.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that it's hard to ignore is that we easily call you the DDG of the Department of Labour, but a few years ago it was renamed the Department of Employment and Labour, because now one of your big responsibilities is also, and it's even, I suppose, in your vision and mission, is to, create employment in the country. What has the department done? What are the programs that you have in place that can say, okay, well, we've been able to create so many jobs and this is the contribution that we've made as a department?
Well, this is work in progress that we're doing. The first issue, it plays exactly in the space of informal economy. We've got to speed up the policies that we're talking about whether should our law and policies allow everybody coming in the country to play in that space of informality. That's the issue that we need to be looking at, and that's the issue that we're doing going forward. But all, as you know, legislation setting in our country, because we're democratic and we have got constitution, takes a little bit longer. That's the first issue that we're looking at. Looking precisely at this space, should we, our immigration policy, what should it be saying, and our economic policy, and what should it be saying? Those are the issues that we intend to introduce, I'm sure, before the next quarter of this year, when all the processes are finalized, where the policies are going to be clearer. For us, those are those issues. The second issue is that we are busy, not only as a Department of Employment and Labour, the Department of Employment and Labour does the coordination. There are many departments that are playing in this space of employment, and all of them work with us. The work that we're doing on ensuring that unemployed workers are absorbed in the economy, in the jobs that we are setting with the presidency. All of those assist in this process. They might not be formal jobs, as we're saying, but they also add a little bit on that. But it's got to be at a bigger scale than it is in order to absorb bigger numbers.
Yeah, well, we are, of course, in conversation with the DDG for the Department of Employment and Labour, Mr. Thembinkosi Mkalipi. And he's going to stay with us because we're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. But on Newsfeed PM, the late night edition, we really are looking forward to getting your views on this discussion as well, right? The lived experiences of the millions of South Africans who are looking for jobs at the moment. Many having said just looking for work is an incredibly expensive exercise in and of itself. And if you have any questions for the department, perhaps you're more than welcome to get in touch with us with those as well. The WhatsApp line is 072 110 5584. So send us a video or a text message. We love videos because we'd love to see your face, of course. 072 110 5584, or engage us on X with the handle @Newzroom405. Welcome back. We are still with Employment and Labour Department Deputy Director General Thembinkosi Mkalipi, and of course we're also looking at some of your comments on our discussion today. But we're asking you, what is the most difficult part of battling unemployment? As we have seen in the third quarter of the year, it's a slight improvement, of course, in what those numbers have looked like. 1.4% a dip in unemployment numbers. So now the unemployment rate sitting at 32.1%. So some improvement. But the question does remain that for 8 million South Africans, they're battling with this on a daily basis. So what are some of the biggest struggles of living with unemployment? That WhatsApp number 072 110 5584, or send us a message on X @Newzroom405. DDG, I want us to just perhaps look at some of the comments that have come in. Unknown, I tell you, says not having a cent to meet basics. If you have a child, it's worse. The child asks you for basics that other working parents can easily get for their child, yet you cannot. So, I mean, you can just imagine. So you've been unemployed for a long time and a child asks for a new pair of shoes, right? Things that you should ideally, a shirt for school, a school book, you're unable to provide that. It must be an incredibly frustrating position to be in. And Nkosi Mputi says, disrespect and fail to even buy 10 kg of rice that time you obtained a degree or diploma. South Africa is a disaster. A disrespect really standing out for me. Nkosi, thank you so much for sending that message, speaking to the, I suppose, the dignity or lack thereof that comes with unemployment. If one person is the owner of the company, pay car installment of 85,000 Rand monthly, then obviously poor people will be unemployed and poor people will remain poor whether you are working or not. So that, of course, speaking to inequality in South Africa. And that, here's the issue. And inequality being an issue, particularly for the unemployed, but also for those that are employed. And it is one of the triple threats that we face as a country: inequality, poverty, and the issue of jobs. And we're asking you to keep those messages coming in. Melvin says, your government still requires people to hand deliver CV in this age. Again, age restriction for government jobs needs to be scrapped. So access, such an important one. Send us a WhatsApp on 072-110-5584. DDG, you listen to some of those comments, and I hear, one person talking about the disrespect, being unable to fulfill the most basic duties. You listen to those comments, and what's your message to those 8 million that are watching and perhaps desperately seeking employment and living with it on a daily basis? How do you talk someone out of that mess?
There's no doubt that there's nothing that takes away the dignity of a person than being unemployed. There's no doubt about that. And all the masses of the unemployed, and no person want to live on a grant. Everybody would want to get a job and that they would be proud of, and they will get income and feed their family. There's no doubt about that. And that's why we must, all of us, work very hard to ensure that we create the necessary environment for the economy to be able to grow. Without the economy growing, we are not going to be able to solve the problem of unemployment. And that's the only solution that is in solving this problem. And that's the only thing I can say in that. And obviously, those who are unemployed have not, I'll ask them not to give up hope on that this problem would be resolved. But it's not easy. It's really not easy for a person who's unemployed. I can't say more than that.
Yeah, let's see more comments, DDG. Some of them having come in via WhatsApp, some via X as they come up on the screen. Do get in touch with us. That number again, 072-110-5584. Let's see the comments that have come in about what the reality of being unemployed really looks like. Right, so someone tweeting earlier that you need to be able to submit for government jobs in some cases, hand deliver CVs. Well, that's taxi money. That's resources that if you're unemployed, you simply don't have them. Mandla Malandela says, once one chooses a career beyond his or her gap, this person finds it impossible to create employment for himself. Children need to choose wisely, something they're passionate about. That's certainly going to be a big talking point, right? How we're creating jobs. So when people are unemployed, we say, well, can you create your own jobs? Introduce unemployment fund. That's Lucas saying, renew closed mines, a reduced number of cabinet in all departments. All matriculated people must be given a minimum wage. That's been a big talking point for a long time. Do we need a wage for the unemployed? Lebogang Chabangu said, well, if the government can stop eating all the money, corruption is very bad in South Africa. Let's start by cleaning our country. Many people making that association between maladministration, corruption, and of course, how our country and our economy performs. Anela says, it's actually finding the employment itself. It is expensive and emotionally exhausting. Quite the thought. DDG, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, we'll keep tracking the numbers, checking in with the department to hear about programs that you do have in place to help the 8 million South Africans that are still looking for work. Thembinkosi Mkalipi is, of course, the DDG of the Department of Employment and Labour.